Why are calls to action so important? Why do you actually need them for your podcast? Well, today I want to talk about exactly why you need to have calls to action and how you can create them. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Krystal here, and today I want to talk about calls to action for your podcast. So I want to dig into why they are important and how you can actually create them. And I'm also going to share with you the 6 calls to action that I use in my podcast all the time. I actually have a free download that you can check out here, which is the 25 calls to action you can make from any podcast. I don't care what it is that you do, but I want you to go grab that. That way you can get a few more ideas. But we're only going to talk about the 6 today that I use most often. But before we get there, let's talk about the why. Why are calls to action important, or CTAs, which I'll kind of go back and forth between what I call them. But why are they important? Well, CTAs are important because it sets listener expectation. It lets them know ahead of time before you ever have any kind of branded content or sponsored stuff within your podcast. It sets that up that is the route that we're going. So if you are a podcaster and your goal is to have branded deals one day, like that's the dream, right? Is to have someone call you and say, I want to throw some money at you so you can talk about my product on your podcast. If that is your dream, then let me tell you a little story. There was a podcast I listened to a few years ago that shall remain nameless, and they kept saying over and over and over again, we will not have ads on our podcast. We will not have ads on our podcast. We will not have ads on our podcast. Guess what happened? They started putting ads on their podcast. And I know I'm being a little dramatic whenever I go through this whole story, but as a listener, I was so upset. Like, I felt betrayed by this podcast that all of a sudden they started throwing ads that were totally not relevant to anything that they talked about. This was a motivational personal development podcast. And then all of a sudden they're telling me about weird stuff, like just weird stuff that did not make sense at all for this podcast. Needless to say, I no longer listen to this show anymore because of the way they did this. But I want to let you know that having calls to action within your podcast from the day one will kind of like minimize that transition from whenever you do actually get sponsored content for your podcast. So even if you don't have plans to monetize your show today or in the next 6 months or in the next year, I still suggest that you have calls to action within your podcast. Why is that? Well, it's going to sound a little funny, but listeners like to be told what to do. We do. And I say that as like a general statement because I listen to a ton of podcasts as well. And I love it when the podcast host offers more value in some way. Whether they're telling me to go check out this book that they know I would love, or they're telling me to listen to this other podcast, or to go to this live event because it could totally change my life. I appreciate that as a listener because they are trying to add value to me. And I want you to understand that as a podcast host. And also, you're not bothering anybody. You are not bothering anybody by asking them to do something. I want to be very clear on that because I see that a lot. People say, oh, I don't want to bother my audience. Y'all, they're already there listening to you. How are you going to bother them by offering something of value? Now, if you tell them about some stamps place that they don't need to know about, going back to the other podcast that, we don't listen to and we will not talk about anymore from this point on, but give them something of value, offer something to them, and I promise you they will appreciate it. I appreciate it when podcast hosts give me valuable resources that I can go check out. I want to give you a specific example of this because Marie Forleo, she's the queen of just everything. And she does such an amazing job of this. She'll tell you from the beginning of her podcast, This is the audio version of Marie TV, her award-winning show on YouTube. And she just tells you like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. And then she gives book recommendations. She tells me to listen to other podcasts. She tells me to go to these live events. She tells me to go, sign up for B School or go check out like any of these other amazing programs that she's either a part of or she totally endorses. And I appreciate that, right? Because I am an avid listener and a consumer of everything that Marie Forleo does. So I appreciate it whenever she offers something of value through a call to action within her podcast or on her YouTube channel. I'm not getting mad at Marie. I don't feel like she's bothering me. So I don't want you to feel like you're bothering your listeners either. But I want to know in the comments below, have you ever felt bothered by someone asking you to do something within a podcast or on a YouTube channel, right? If it's not for you, you probably just don't do it. But have you ever felt bothered? Like, is someone actually bothering you by asking you to go do something? Like, are they stepping over the line with a call to action? Because I'm genuinely curious. I don't feel like people are bothering me, and I don't want you to feel that way either, but maybe there's a few of you out there that have some specific examples. So comment below and tell us what you have experienced. Okay, let's get back to talking about calls to action. Okay, so now that you understand why we need calls to action within our podcast, we're going to talk about how to actually create them and the top 6 that I use most often on my podcast. So the first thing you have to decide is, what do you want them to do? What is the specific goal of your call to action? Then, how are you going to say it? So I want to give you some specific examples of exactly what I say. The first one, if my goal is to have more subscribers, I say, hey, subscribe to the show. So this is an actual excerpt of what I say on the Proffitt podcast. That does it for this episode. So if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe and hear what other fun things that we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks. And that's it. That's all you have to say. If this is your first time tuning in, make sure that you subscribe. That way you can check out all the other things that we'll be talking about in the coming weeks. It's very straightforward, and I don't think it has to be overly complicated. So at the very, very least, asking someone to subscribe should be the thing that you have in your podcast. The next call to action that I use most often is check out our show notes. So I would say, for example, if you want to find any more information that we discussed in this podcast episode, go to krystalproffitt.com/episode 84. That's it. It's literally the podcast, the page where I have all the episode show notes. And so people can go there. All you have to do is say, check out the show notes. Here's the URL. Simple as that. The third call to action that I use most often is leave a review. So you could say something like, if you like what you've been hearing today, I encourage you to go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and leave us a review. Tell us what you love about the episode. Tell us which episode is your favorite, or you can just comment with the other topics that you want to hear us talk about in the future. Simple. The fourth call to action that I use most often is to grab a freebie, and it's as easy as giving them the landing page that they need to go to check it out. So all the time here and on my podcast, I advertise about my free 5-day podcast bootcamp. So I could say something like, and if you're interested in learning more about podcasting and the basics, then I encourage you to go to krystalproffitt.com/podcast bootcamp, where you're going to learn the basics of how to start, launch, and market your podcast. So go check it out. That's it. All you have to do is tell them where to go, what it is, and how it's going to help them. Always offering value whenever you can. The fifth call to action I use is join our Facebook group. So if you are looking for a community of like-minded people who are going on the same journey as you, then I invite you to join the Proffitt Podcast Online Community Facebook group, where you're going to find other podcasters just like you. That's all you got to say, guys. Like, just tell them where to go, what the name of your group is, or if you have another online community somewhere, then just tell them, this is where we hang out. This is what we talk about. This is how often you will see posts, or you'll see me go live on these days. Like, just give them the information that they need to know and tell them why they should join the group. Do you have a lot of fun in there? Do you share things there that you don't share anywhere else? Just give them a little bit of insight and an incentive to go check out your groups. And the last call to action that I use most often on my podcast is to check out a YouTube video. So I'll say something like, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, be sure to go watch my YouTube video that I'll link to in the show notes that goes into more detail about how you can do blah, 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 and whatever it is that it's going to be about. Maybe it is about how to be an amazing podcast guest, or how podcast interviews work. If I have a YouTube video related to what it is I'm talking about on the podcast, then I'll be sure to mention that and tell them, hey, go check it out. So those are the top 6 calls to action that I make most often in my podcast. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and make sure that you go grab the 25 calls to action that you can make from any podcast. Because if you liked these, then you're gonna like those. Y'all, I could probably make a list of 100 calls to action that you could make from any podcast, but I have 25 to start out with. So go ahead and make sure and grab those, because they can really help you out even if you're just getting started. But don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. That way you're notified whenever we put out new podcasting videos every single Friday. And if you're interested in podcasting, sign up for our free 5-day podcast bootcamp. I've already kind of given you the spiel here, but it's where you're going to learn how to start, launch, and market your podcast. But remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.